What up, good people of FPV? We are now finally live, and we're going to talk about some new releases for 2025 for Geprc today. I have quite a few things on the bench to go over with you. We're going to start out with some of the most important releases of 2025, in my opinion. It depends on, I guess, what you're into, but they sent us a whole bunch of new stuff to start out the year. And, I had an exciting review this week with the Cinelog 30 V3. It's crazy that we're already on the V3. Here we are. So there is another release, and someone earlier mentioned something about, hey, Leon, welcome to the channel. Maybe it was another Mod 7 release. Well, they might do a V2 of the Mod 7, but we'll have to see. And in today's overview, that's not what this is about. There is no Mod 7 on the bench. It doesn't exist yet. I know that all of the companies are working on 7-inch 04 HD releases, but there's still going to be some analog stuff available for some of the same frames. As always, nothing's changed, except for the addition of 04, which is kind of cool. So I think we should just kind of hop right into what I have here to show off today for this release party. And this is pretty fun for me because someone asked me the other day, what do you do to get stuff early from Geprc? I well, I guess 11 years of dedication on a YouTube channel is probably enough. They don't Geprc doesn't pay me. I'm not a sponsored channel. I don't have any sponsors on this channel. The only way this channel makes any money is ad revenue and being able to uh, provide some of this stuff back to you guys for a cheap deal, or just affiliate link on a video. And trust me, affiliate links no one makes a living off affiliate links. And I don't have my own frames and products to shill to you guys. So you're going to be shilling one thing or the other, because some people get a little sideways about channels making a profit. But I guarantee you it's not enough to make a living off of. However, you have to have diversity in your job if you're going to be an independent, say, sole proprietor. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty it's ups and downs. Some months you're like, wow, man, I made an insane amount of income this month. Other months you're like, oh man, I need to try harder. But that's what self-employment's all about. And yeah, I've been doing it now for 20 years. Quit my job one day and I never went back. But every once in a while you're working for a company and you're like, man, I'm making this company so much money and I don't feel valued. And that's where a lot of people decide to, like, man, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go start my own company. So many spinoffs of other companies, great companies, start from ideas like that. But look at all this stuff on the bench. Going on Geprc's website, I believe that a lot of them are just getting back to work after the Chinese New Year. They did have quite an extended break, and if we look on Geprc's website, one of the first things that I would like to introduce to you that I haven't even reviewed on the channel yet, that's sitting in one of these boxes right here in front of you, is the Vapor D5. Now, the Vapor D5 is an 04 quad. This is the website. It's an 04 quad. You can get it with a TBS Nano RX, ELRS, PNP, that means no receiver, or ELRS 2.4 with GPS. That's awesome. I wish they would have sent me the GPS version, because I like to have GPS on pretty much everything nowadays, even if it's a tiny little Cinewhoop. TBS Nano RX with GPS. And I've started asking these companies to start sending me ELRS receivers, because I'm now running the GX12 radio, and it makes sense for me to start transitioning over, because TBS Nano has been my standby. I still have my Radio Master Boxer sitting over there at the top of the bench with the Crossfire module, the full-blown one that will go up to 2 watt. That's one of the most powerful Crossfire modules that you can get out there right now. If you find one that's an original one, buy it because it still works just as good. And I only recently updated my Crossfire module last year after flying it for about 8 years, and it just works. It's awesome. So I'm literally leaning now more toward ELRS finally after all these years. So this one comes in, not surprisingly, at the top end with GPS, ELRS, or TBS Nano RX at $477.99, which is not surprising. It's close to $500. But what this Vapor series has different than the original Vapor series that came out previously, we reviewed one on the channel. It was the DJI 03 version. And this one has been beefed up. It has extra thick arms on it. It has 5mm arms, so it could be a nice freestyle quad. And this one doesn't even mess around with X or D versions. It looks like they only have this D version, unless I'm going to be proven wrong coming up in the next couple months. But this one is the D5, which is awesome because D means dead cat. It looks like there may be a D6 as well, D5 and D6. Yes, here is the D5. D5 not coming in much cheaper, honestly. So D5 is a 5-inch FPV freestyle drone with 04 on there, your choice of receiver or GPS or without it. And then the D6. I would like to have the D6. If I was going to choose between the 5 and the 6, I'd take the 6 because I can get a little more range out of the 6, which is cool. Now, if you haven't seen it, you should go definitely check out our Cinelog 30V3 version review that we did yesterday or the day before. Yeah, yesterday. Today, our review of Atom RC's twin Beluga came out. I spent a lot of time setting that one up, so you should definitely check that video out if you're into long-range FPV fixed wing. So I think we should go ahead and start narrowing this down for you. And let's take a look at this first box in the lineup. I got 3 boxes here. I've got 2 Vapors, and I've got the Cinelog 30, and I've got a brand new 1S charger right here, which is the WooPower W63. It is kind of the competitor 1S charger to the Whoop Store 3 that you guys have seen on my channel. I've really loved the Whoop Store 3, and I've always recommended it from V-Fly for a couple years now. They make them in all different colors now. And before that, I was using the 6-in-1 eSheen 1S charger. So quite an evolution of different chargers here. And I could even show you these other 2, or all 3 of them right together, before we jump into the Vapor here. So this is Geprc's Woo charger, W63. This is the Whoop Store 3. And you can see there's a size difference between both of them. They both have like a physical built-in fan, which I love. And they have internal heat sinks. This one has a little bit of advantage by size and a 12-volt barrel plug port. So 3 power options for input and up to 12 different options for output, 1 through 6. I have also tried to charge simultaneously on the Geprc, and actually both of these chargers, both the BT 2.0 connector here and this PH 2.0 connector here at the same time on the same channel. And what it does is, it's interesting. It picks the one you plugged in first, and then it'll transition over and start charging the next battery over. So even if you have 2 of them charged into the same channel, it recognizes that this one is next in line, which is kind of cool. I wouldn't try that with the eSheen version that I have here. Who knows what would happen if you plugged in 2 batteries at once. But this is an older one, and you can see it has the original PH 1.0 on there, that little tiny one. We stopped using that one probably back in like 2016 or so, and the PH 2.0 connector next to it kind of replaced it. and still exists today, like 8 years later. So that's cool. This one has a much larger screen. You know, if I don't want to plug in a 6S battery. I think you could. It has a pretty wide voltage range on it, but I'm going to go ahead and plug in this 4S Lion and show you this screen real quick before you hop into this Vapor D5. But look at that. Now that's the screen on Geprc's 1S charger. Full color, LED, and then the Whoop Store. You know, and one of the things that I mentioned about the Whoop Store when it came out was that, man, I wish it had a bigger screen, because the screen difference between these two is pretty significant. I mean, look at that. Some of you guys that wear glasses or whatever, the numbers are easier to read on this one. And they're both about the same brightness. They're both full color. Now, one thing that I like right away about Geprc's charger, the Woo Charger W63 on this firmware, as soon as you plug in a battery, it starts to auto charge, which I love. The Whoop Store 3, you have to come down here and long press on start stop to get it to start the charge process. So I like the auto charge on this one. I mean, for a 1S battery charger, that's pretty, you want simplicity when you're charging 1S. And probably the most simplistic, cheapest 1S 6-in-1 charger out there is still the eSheen one. But this one will not work with your 4S batteries. If you plug in 4S on this one, it'll fry it. So I'm always looking for something that will do like 12 volts. So this one has XT60 here, USB A, and then a barrel plug connector. But this one only can go up to 12 volts. So 3S battery on this one, maximum. But I thought that was pretty cool. You can find this one in the link down below if you want to grab one of these. I'm going to do a kind of a full overview of this one coming up. It's nice rubber feet on the bottom. And check this out. It says input is 7 to 25 volt. So you could plug in a 6S battery to this crazy thing. The slider right there, XT60 input to USB-C. So you can use a power bank or something like that if you go to like a Whoop event. And you're pretty much not going to fry this one with the power input. Most of the batteries that you have, it'll work on. Most of the time I'm using my 4S Lions to run these type of devices. So that's what's new for 2025 coming up. Full specs on the back. We'll go over all this if you're interested to see some more detail on that one coming up. But let me go ahead and move some of these boxes out of the way, and let's get into what I think is kind of the star of the show today. What I'm the most excited about is this black box right here. They also sent me a set of 04 ND filters. There's, I don't know, maybe Freewell, some of these people making them, but I haven't seen a lot of these out yet. I'm sure all the major companies will probably, it's probably all out of the same factory, who knows? But I'm sure they'll all come out with those. But Geprc has their own, which is cool. They just snap on. And the big black box you've been waiting for. Now, I showed you the price on this one, and it's kind of cool, their presentation. When you open up the box, you get this cover plate, which is kind of cool. You take that off, and then there, so much changes on this one versus the original, the Vapor that I had. I had the X5, or was it the X6? I'm gonna have to look at that box again. I have Quadnesia. Oh, yes. It's the X6, the original one that I have. So this is the X6. Whoops. Okay. So that is the 6, the X version. And that is the D5. D5 X6. Now, what they did was they came in and they added the 04 TPU backplate back here. This is adding 2 extra spots for dual antennas, where this one has an O3 on it, and it has a singular antenna for the TPU mount back here. And whatever they did from this 3M tacky sticky stuff for the top plate to this version is so sticky I couldn't even barely get the cover off of it, the cover plastic. It is ridiculously sticky. I had to like rip my battery off of whatever type of sticky material this is. Don't get this around dirt and dust, because you will have shitloads of sand and stuff on this. It's probably the most tacky material that I've seen them come out with. Yeah, it's almost like it's like a sticker. Very, very sticky. And I don't know if we need it really that sticky. That stuff wears off after a while. We do have 2207E motors on this one, and it appears to be 1980 kV. So we got a little bit of silver trim on it on the top, very subtle. We don't have any red accents on this one, like what we've seen before. And on the O3 version, you don't have the side plates. They added the side plates, kind of protecting some of this stuff in here. And this kind of allows us to kind of see in to the interior of the quad. And this one has an extra carbon plate underneath the O3, but there's no side plate protection here for that O3. And, I've seen that some people say that the O4 is fragile. So if this O4 is fragile, you definitely want some kind of side plate protection. Now, where this one probably has a little bit of fault, and I think that they did this on purpose, was because you need some kind of venting back here. And if there's plastic covering this totally, you're going to have a lot of this venting blocked. But I'm not sure that it matters. Now, one of my biggest things about the O4 so far is the overheating. So we're going to see how these serve us. We're going to have to probably crank down some of the power in the summertime when it gets hotter. I was trying to run at full max recently on my fixed wing plane, and within 2 minutes up in the air, with it being set 37 degrees outside, it overheated and wanted to turn itself off. And a lot of times with my FPV planes, I run dual cameras, so I have a backup safety, so I can just switch from one pair of goggles to the other. I'll run HD and analog at the same time, which is what I did with that plane. But it would be nice to have 2 backup cameras on a long-range quad. That might be an option coming up. We can do that in iNav, where you can do camera switching. It's pretty cool. You could even run 2 separate VTXs with 2 separate analog cameras. So this one has shorter antennas in the back. They extend up about like this. And we have our TBS Nano RX back here. It's accessible. A smaller Mortal T back here. It's almost like a clip version. It does say Geprc on this. So apparently they're making their own TBS branded, Geprc branded antennas. We got this bottom plate down here and 5mm arms. Same arms as what's on the O3 version. Now, what I did like about this version, this D5, they have sort of cut this TPU arm protector on the end here. It comes up over the edge, which is good protection for when you're having those hard landings or crashes. But they kind of chopped it in half, so saving just a little bit of weight, but still protecting the end of the arm. And the arms themselves, they're pretty flat. They do have kind of a nice bevel edge. It doesn't appear to be any of the type of carbon composite that we've seen in some of the other frames. Like the smaller Cinewhoops have the carbon composite. It almost looks like black. It's just like a black coating over top of the carbon. But this one's full carbon. And I wonder if this one on the website, if the specs are actually going to be the T7 carbon versus 3K. We have the stack here in the middle. It does have 20x20 option and 30x30, and carbon plate up at the front. This bottom plate goes from the back to the front. Look at all the bolts here. There is a lot of bolts. Hey Johnny D, welcome to the chat, bro. Pretty nice looking quad, huh? So it appears to be a mix of M3 hardware and some M2 hardware front to back. We also have 4 extra bolts up front, and I'll show you what that is in just a second. I'll grab my driver, and we'll pop the top on this baby, and I'll show you what's going on under the hood. Let me just get some of these boxes out of the way. How are you guys doing out there today? You guys doing all right? Staying away from the Karens? Still happily flying FPV after the world's gone crazy? Man, it's crazy out there, isn't it? What's going on in the news? We get a little political on this channel, so if you don't like that, I'm sorry for you. But I do like this one. What do you guys think about this design versus, say, something like the Nazgul? I think we should pop the top. Let's count how many M3 bolts hold it on. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a lot of bolts to pop the top plate. Now the top plate looks pretty thin. I would say this top plate is coming in right around 2 mil. It's really super thin. Now up front, we have the dead cat, which is cool because you won't see any props in this 04 video. It didn't come with a GoPro mount installed. I put that on there, but it was in the box. So you will get a GoPro mount, which is awesome. They also have 2 layers of silicone dampening here, and they have M2 screws going into the 04 camera here. If you loosen both of those, it slides back and forth, up and down. And this is mounted in through this aircraft aluminum front camera protector. This is pretty solid. I like that little detail on the side with the silver. Right there, give you a little close-up of that. See if this camera focuses pretty good. Look at that. It's nice. So there's a lot of bottom plate protection here, but there's not a whole bunch over the top of the camera. So the top of your 04 is fairly open to hitting things if you come in for a hard crash. If you have a GoPro up there, you have a little more protection, but you're probably going to break your GoPro. Got to break something when you crash. These side plates are pretty neat. It's neat to see red or sort of an orange color. These release with only looking at them, you would think there's more bolts holding this side plate on, but what's awesome, it's pretty easy to take these side plates off. They're punched into the columns that come down here, and there's 2 M2 bolts, one here and one on the bottom up front. And once you release both those bolts, you can pop it off the standoffs, the 2 standoffs right here. So you have quick access to your flight controller. One of the things that I had a problem with too is this hole's not quite big enough for getting your USB-C cable in there. So when I went to put mine in, I used this one from GoPro because it works nicely. It's a data cable, but it would not go, like a GoPro cable will not fit in there and make it in. It has a little bit of blockage there, but it does give you access to putting in this to reach that button right next to the USB-C, which is cool. So let me grab my driver. Let's open this up. All right. Put some comments in the chat. Let me know what you guys think about this one. Let's go ahead and do some work. Got front mount XT60 up here. Kind of interesting. I always prefer mine in the back. I would rather it come out the back, but one of the reasons that companies are doing this is because having your power source as far away from your VTX gives you less interference and RF problems near your VTX. And that's the reason, one of the big reasons why they do that. Makes sense. It's just engineering. So 4 bolts holding this on. I don't see any extra beveling on the front of these bolts, and there wasn't any in the box. There are quite a few extras in the box. Geprc gives you a variety of a whole bunch of different size replacement hardware for this particular quad, which is nice. You get a bunch of extras, and for $400, I expect some extras. You get those same Geprc stickers in there with all the different quads they've made. Okay, so this was how I got it, and there does appear to be bevel spots here for the hardware to sink into. This hardware that I put into the TPU GoPro mount is not countersink hardware. This other hardware on here is. Oh, there's quite a bit of Loctite on that bolt. I thought I was going to strip it for a second. So yeah, new Geprc stuff, cool. You know, we went for a spell there for a while where we didn't have a lot of new releases. It was kind of crazy. It was like right around November to December, there was kind of a dry spell of releases. Did you guys notice that? I mean, we were getting like 2 to 3 new releases a week in the height of the seasons for FPV. We do have seasons, manufacturing seasons. When they get closer to the holidays, even a couple months out from the holidays, sometimes they will coast on what they have because they just want to move year-end product. You know, it's kind of like the car dealerships don't come out with their new stuff until January, February the following year, so they have a chance to get rid of some of their previous year stock. So these bolts on the back of this frame are a little bit shorter. Look at that. See how much shorter they are there? It looks like about 6 millimeter. And now I can pop this top plate. So 10 bolts holding that top plate on. It's quite a bit of bolts. I like to see like a 6-bolt top plate release, but on a long body like this, it's kind of impossible. But look at that. So let me explain to some of you guys what you're seeing here. Now, some of you guys really don't know what you're looking at because you're new. That's okay. And that's what I do on my channel. I try to walk the new guys through what they're looking at and teach you guys about things. So starting up front, we have our aircraft aluminum larger size mount for the 04. So the 03 mount will be different. This one's a little bit larger to accommodate this camera. And they have it exactly matched up with the side there at about, it looks like about a 30-degree tilt. So on your first flight, you'd be going pretty fast. And again, they reversed the direction of the VBAT output cables here, which is nice. And remember those 4 screws up front here, this 4 M2s there? Two of those go up into the frame, and these other 2 are holding this assembly right here. Check this out. This is kind of convenient for you guys. So this holds the capacitor. Move those 2 wires to the side. This holds the capacitor in place and doesn't let it flop around inside the frame. If you crash, it's not going to bounce and touch the carbon frame because it has TPU underneath it. So that's one of the first TPU capacitor mounts that I've seen. That's good news because, yeah, it's not going to bounce into the frame and get damaged or really move around a lot at all. So it has a little home in there, which is nice. Up here you have a beeper mount, which is cool. And then let's see. Let's take a look at this. This is a 2-up stack flight controller. And, you know, you're looking at this, and I believe it's the Taker F7, the brand new one. I don't have the box nearby, but it is an HD flight controller, USB-C here. But check this out. You don't see any tabs. No tabs. I'm sure there are tabs underneath on the bottom side of this. So if you say you broke one of these harnesses, there's usually going to be solder tabs for each of these underneath this flight controller. Here's our F7 processor in the middle. And this little button right here that you had access to outside the frame, that is the bind button for flashing the new firmware on here. It's a pretty good looking flight controller. So underneath there is where you have your 4-in-1 ESCs. We have very much like iFlight coming off those ESCs, the cables going out to the motors here. We have a cable cover, which is nice. Then we have the 2207E motors. 1960 kV. My eyes are pretty good to be able to see that this far away. And 5mm arms. Now, one thing I didn't get in the box that I really wish that they would have included was an extra carbon arm. Now, I talked about this years ago. I wish these companies would start doing that again, because that really is really convenient the first time you crash and break an arm, because it really sucks to have your quad down and be waiting for like maybe another kit. Sometimes you have to buy a whole new kit just to get an arm, and that sucks. You should be able to buy just like a single arm. I'm going to take this M2 bolt off the front here underneath. Comes out right there. And then I'm going to take off this back bolt. There's this crossbar, this nice little crossbar above the back of the 04. And that is the 04 sitting back there. Most of you guys know what that looks like at this point. So now I took those two M2 bolts off, and you can see that there's a clamp here and a clamp here. So if I pull back on that, it should just pop right off. And this is the side plate, injection molded plastic. Looks like there could be a compromise here maybe with this little venting, because there's not a lot of plastic here and here, but you have to crash really hard to break that. Now, what's cool in the box, I did get an extra set of side plates. So if you don't like the red ones, they include black ones in the box as well. This is nice. So let's check out the goodie bag. And there is, just grab my scissors. Hopefully you guys like this new live stream setup here. This is my workbench. So I just got a camera set up here for you guys. Trying to keep my workbench clean. It's impossible. My workbench probably looks like yours. Most of the FPV guys' workbench are quite a disaster area. All right, let's see, this one has already been opened. So this is, let's check this out. So it's not smoke, it's like not translucent at all. Kind of a black shine, a little bit of a matte finish on it. 2 clamps here for the standoffs. And if you look closely, you can see that there's actually an insert here. So you're not just screwing into plastic, which is cool. And back here, we didn't need an insert because it's actually screwing into the standoff back here. But that's pretty cool. So I want to swap that out, or you want to swap that out if you get one. That's pretty much how easy that is. Just slap it on there. It clamps on the standoffs, put both screws on there, and now you have a different look. If you want it all blacked out, and you know, there's no, I kind of like this, and I'm weird like this. When I go fly, I don't like LEDs. I don't like LED strips. Like on the Nazgul series ones, I disconnected all my LEDs. And that's because when I go out to fly somewhere, I don't want to advertise that I'm like flying a 5-inch FPV drone, ripping around, ripping and dipping around trees, so the Karens can come caravan around me and like freaking trap me. So this one pops back on like that. And they didn't have to change a lot in the back here where the 04 is. We have that same ultra thick carbon block back here, and it has some dampening underneath it too. It has a little thin layer of TPU here between this bottom plate and the staging, which is cool. You can probably see that on the camera. It shines just a little different underneath the carbon plate, but that looks like at least a 5mm carbon plate underneath that VTX. That's quite an extreme base for that. Back here, we've got our TPU mount, 2 standoffs back here. The antenna's coming up through there. You can see back here, there's Geprc branded little miniature Immortal T. And then it also has 2 holes back here. If you don't know what that is, I'm about to tell you. That is a GPS mount. So if you get one with GPS on it, pay a little extra money, yours will come with a GPS hanging off the back here, which is kind of cool. I would have liked the GPS version, but maybe they don't have that one ready yet since they are on holiday right now. So slap those 2 pieces back on and run your bolt through here. Remember, this has a little place to screw into, which is nice. Just don't over tighten your bolts. Never over tighten. You know, one thing too, if you're brand new and you're watching this live stream, because hey, Geprc makes some cool stuff and most of their stuff works freaking out of the box. It's what I love about Gep stuff, and pretty much iFlight and Gep are the same way. I've had the least amount of problems with this gear than any other company out there making bind flies. I have had some issues with Gep before. Gep quads, as you know, everybody has. Nothing is 100%, but I've had the least amount of problems with this company. They also make good hardware that doesn't strip the first time you put a wrench to it. So very reminiscent of iFlight's internal configuration. I mean, everyone's kind of doing the same type of beeper, and sometimes they'll house the receiver up here. The receiver on this quad is actually in the back underneath where the VTX is. Now, whether that placement is good or not, we'll have to figure that out this year. There's going to be some extra heat back here, but it does have its own little place back here, and it does have a TPU housing around the receiver. But you have access to the bind button here as well. See this gold bind button just underneath where the antenna snaps onto the UFL connector. That's where it always is. That's the home for the bind button for TBS nano receivers right there. So I take my bamboo skewer, and once I start up the quad, push that, and you'll be into bind mode. Binding up TBS Crossfire is pretty simple. So I'm going to turn on my radio, and it's already bound up, but I'll just show some of you guys have never seen a TBS type of receiver bound up. It is super simple. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in the quad. No white smoke. No white smoke. That's good. So if you look at your module on the back of your radio, you should see a green light. You should see a solid green light. If you don't see a solid green light on your module, if you see no light, or you see an orange light, or even a red light, if you see anything different than green back here, you got a problem. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and long press on this button right here. Long press on the little joystick button. Now it's going to say XF transmitter Nano RX V3. We're going to click on that, and we can see the channel maps in here, about the general, and we can go back. We can go to the XF transmitter, If we press on that, it will say bind. And now it's in binding mode. You'll see this start to flash. And we'll flip the quad upside down. And a lot of times, the nice thing about these receivers, they do auto updates. Okay, so you press that button on your receiver with your bamboo skewer. You can kind of feel it when you hit it with the bamboo skewer. You can feel it. So sometimes this will take a few minutes to do. Also, if you have a brand new TBS receiver, it'll ask you if you want to update it. Now, it's not going to update it to the latest version of the receiver's firmware. It might actually downgrade it to whatever your Crossfire module is. If you have this Crossfire module updated to the latest release, it will update this to the latest release. But if not, it's going to downgrade it to match whatever your firmware is on your radio's module. So that's nice because going forwards or backwards, you're able to fly your quad. And that's nice. You don't have to have the newest firmware on everything to fly. So how are you guys doing out there? Not super active in the chat today. You guys kind of quiet. Just watching the Geprc TV here. Now, when this process is finished, you'll get a solid green light. And this one's already been bound up. So I'm just going to unplug this here. And after you go through that whole process, just restart the quad. And you can kind of cancel out of your bind process. Sometimes I'll just go all the way through. And sometimes I just stop it because it never ends up finishing. So now we are back to green light. And it's hard to see because they have a piece of black tape, or actually black TPU coming over this, holding this receiver in place. But now we're back to solid green light. That's what you should see. So yes, I'm still flying my Boxer, and this one is an ELRS version, the Max Edition. It's pretty nice. I really like the kickstand on the back. One of my favorite things about that radio, because you can put it down on the bench and kind of stand it up so you can see the screen if you're working on it. Now, some of the other stuff that came in the box, let's check this out. Showed you the side plates. You get an extra 3M sticky bed here. This is the plastic that was on top. This is the most stickiest 3M tape cushion I've ever seen. You get a little bolt in here, and this bolt's actually kind of long. Probably about 10 millimeters too long, sticking out the side of this mount for whatever reason. That bolt could be a little bit shorter. And a whole bunch of extra hardware. And what's cool is Geprc always gives you like a carbon logo keychain. I think that's kind of cool. Slap that on your car keys. You get a little motor wrench, and I did not recommend using some shit like this. Just use whatever wrench you have in your toolbox. And then you get some extra Allen keys, and you do get some extra, looks like these are some extra inserts for the frame. That's kind of cool. I haven't seen these included on a lot of kits. That's nice. So, and then you also get a silicone USB-C plug right here, and that slides into your flight controller. I believe there was also one on the 04 on the side right here, so you don't get dirt and stuff in that. You can put that in when you go out to fly. Johnny D says he sent his walk snail module in for repair. You're back to analog. Oh man, sorry to hear that. So let's go ahead and put this top plate back on. Let's check this out real quick though. They got the Geprc logo up front. Sure, that's 3K carbon fiber. So, one of the things about Gep's carbon is that there are a whole bunch of different grades of carbon fiber. Uh, and Geprc, iFlight make really nice, polished 3K carbon fiber. Um, I know back in the day, Diatone was making some T7 carbon frames, a little higher grade, but that's a lot more expensive to produce. I think 3K is just fine with me. So one tip for you guys, like if you're working on your quad on the bench, you're a new guy, watch these motor magnets. They will suck these bolts right into under the side of the motor. And when you go to fire up your quad, you could have a little motor fire. You know, watch out for that. Just double check there's no hardware on your motors when you go to fire it up. And if it doesn't fry the motor, it'll cause big problems when you go to fly. So I'm going to stick this GoPro mount back on here. Goes on just like this. And these bolts screw down into the standoff. Actually, this one goes into the camera housing up front. Make sure I use the right bolts on this. These are a little longer than the other top plate bolts, and they're not countersunk bolts. These are just standard M3 bolts. I wish there was a little bit of a lip on those, a little bit of beveled edge to hold extra on top of the TPU, because sometimes what happens with these is when you crash with your GoPro, the weight of your GoPro rips the mount off or breaks one side. It's a pretty hard hit to do that though, but I have done that before. This one's a little more compact and not so long front to back, so it should be a little more sturdy. But you know, in a crash, anything happens. But it's pretty easy to work on. Um, and countersunk bolts, 6 M3 countersunk bolts. 2 shorties go in the very back. But yeah, this one, we're going to do a full review on this one coming up. Hopefully I can finish this one up by Friday for you guys. I'm sure you want to see it fly. Nice looking quad though. The other quad that they recently came out with was the Cinelog 30V3. I don't know if you caught that review, but we reviewed that one already this week. You know, some people were saying, "Oh, this doesn't freestyle as good as some people are saying." Blah blah blah. You know, Cinelogs really aren't freestyle quads. If they don't freestyle well, it's because it's a Cinewhoop. It's not a freestyle drone. It's made for Cine. It's made for cine photography, videography, not photography. Guess you could take pictures with it if you really wanted to. Set up a little servo shutter snap like in the old days. So check this out. This is one pet peeve of mine with this particular 3M sticky that came out for the top plate. It's so tacky that when I was look at this, when I literally destroyed the front end of this trying to use a razor blade to pop the tip up. So it's really tacky and hard to get this separated. It kind of reminds me of that material that back in the day when you bought Fruit Loops or yeah, I believe they were in boxes of Fruit Loops. They had these like wacky wall walkers. You throw this little plasticky stinky little toy up against the wall and it would kind of walk down the wall. This feels more sticky than that stuff. But look at that. Like just totally just kind of biffed the front end of this a little bit. And I still can't, it's impossible to do it with my fingers. Now they did include some new props in this box, which is cool. I'm going to show you those. They actually, Geprc and Vanny made some props together. Or no, they didn't. Jim Fan and Vanny. Vanny might be too cool for Geprc. Jim Fan, Vanny style, 5136. So I used to like the 5150s back in the day. And these seem to be kind of a medium cord. They're not super wide. And they have a nice thin tip out here on the outside edge to that really sharp tip. Nice curve here. Pretty decent connection to the center hub. It gets pretty thick right about here. There's kind of a less aggressive amount of tilt on that next to the hub. So it's not a really super high amount. But out here it really smooths out. So most of your lift is going to come from about this part of the prop. And out here it's just going to smooth out some of the vibrations. So a little sharper tip, that'll also make it a little quieter, which is pretty cool. But it's not going to be super quiet because this is a 6S quad. You also get some extra paperwork in the box. You get a manual for the Geprc F722 HD. It's ICM 42688-P SPI also. So maybe it has a built-in. Let's see. The ESCs are good for 3 to 6S LiPo. And the F7 fly is nice. 16 megabytes of onboard storage, and you get the full schematic here, which is nice. You get all your receiver hookups and everything, LEDs, GPS wiring if you want to add a GPS later. Remember how I mentioned those solder tabs were on the bottom underneath these harnesses? There they are. They usually do that. This side we have the English 30.5 by 30.5 mounting. 5 UARTs on this one. So you can add a few more sensors if you want. But that's pretty cool. You also get stickers. And let me show you what's in this box. Continue this Geprc 2025 release party. This is our friend, the Cinelog 30 V3. I also got an extra set of prop guards in the box with this one. And these just kind of bend up like that into place. And this is not TPU back here. This is injection molded, sort of soft, almost like a silicone, almost a harder type of silicone. This is the carbon composite frame, like we talked about. They didn't do on the Vapor series. They did this a lot on the smaller center whoops. I also got 2 other extra camera housing and DK's GoPro mounts in the box, which is cool. Underneath here is where all your goodies are. So we have props that came along with it, HQs, T76 by 3 V2s, just typical cinema type props. And we also have this top plate, which is a black one. Then there's a gray one. A little bit of, is that venting? No, it's just for looks. It'd be cool if that was kind of venting back here. But 4 bolts hold these on. Pretty easy to pull on and off. It doesn't affect the bottom plate mount. And this camera is on those mini groms that drive me crazy when I try to put them back on after they fall off. It's staged underneath. There's a grommet back here, one here. And it is not a carbon plate. It's carbon. It's a plastic composite plate down here. You can see that move. We got our wiring going to the all-in-one flight controller, and they also added this sort of other PCB back here, this power distribution board for the beeper, the XT30. So this is kind of like an all-in-one PCB back here for all of this. And they put a staging for the receiver, which is mounted straight to, powered straight through this PCB. So if you broke any of these components in here, you may have to get a whole new PCB, and we'd really have to just pull this thing all the way apart to find out if that will be something that you have to replace in entirety or not. And it runs, look at that, it runs all the way to the back. So if you have if you crash, if you go in backwards and you break this, it will affect all of this up in here probably. Unless it just ends the circuit right here and only affects the USB-C. There is 2 standoffs on the very back that the PCB goes around, so it doesn't make contact with the standoffs. But it's a really interesting engineering choice as far as something being compromised. I think they did this way with something like a Cinelog because they're not typically pushed as hard as, you would never do this on a 5-inch freestyle. We stopped doing these all-in-one PCB things quite a few years ago. Like from front to back, they used to do on the old ZMR 250s. They had a PCB that pretty much attached everything on the entire quad. They don't do that anymore, thank God. So that PCB stops at these 2 standoffs right here and doesn't go any further. And just underneath the flight controller, the AIO flight controller, is the Taker F7. We've got the 04. We've got 2 hatches down bottom, USB-C here. And on the other side, we have another sort of rubber hatch for getting access to your SD card and the bind button. And then sometimes when when I'm working on these things or accessing the 04, I forget to put these little doors back on, and then I fire it up and I hit the door. I did do that once with this one in the review as I was flying indoors, and it hit this one, and it didn't damage any of it, so that's good news. This prop fired up and hit this. It didn't hurt the prop, and it didn't hurt this. It just makes a noise. 4 bolts holding that 04 in place. You have LEDs all the way around, and I should show you this in the dark, how cool this thing looks. I'm gonna grab a XT30 battery here. And if you're wondering, this is a 4S quad. So that's pretty cool. Check it out. I like this orange frame. This is kind of cool. Whoa. The LEDs themselves are blue, like a kind of a light blue, but when you flip it over, it just gives this cool orange day glow. And when you set it down, you sort of see blue coming out underneath the orange. That's pretty neat, isn't it? And, if you wanted to, you could use the black frame, but I think this is kind of a backup frame. This is a little bit of smoke. You can kind of see through it. That's kind of a cool frame, too. If you want more of a blue look, instead of the orange. But I think the orange looks cool. And I was talking about this at a friend's event the other night, that I want our stuff to look more like hobby stuff and less nefarious these days, because there's a whole bunch of crazy political stuff going on with drones right now. And we don't really need any more bad news. So if your quad looks toyish out there in the world, it's probably going to be better, honestly. That's pretty cool looking, though, isn't it? What do you think about that? Now, I was able to get up to like an 850 milliamp battery on this quad at the max. I mean, you could go probably a little bit bigger, maybe an 1100 would ride on this. It'd be purely a cinema quad at that point. You probably wouldn't want to try to freestyle an 1100, just long flight. But the cool news is that even though these are 1404 motors, plenty of power for freestyle, but also like a decent amount of flight time on a 4S 850. I think you can get over probably 11 minutes. And there is no GPS on this one. And I'm not sure that they have options for that on the site. But that is pretty cool. And that one comes in around about $60 cheaper, $70 cheaper than the Vapor D5. And that is the 2025 Cinelog 30 V3. They released this in early January on the website. And I couldn't wait to get my hands on one to fly it, show it to you guys, and kind of compare it to what the V2 was like. I really like the addition of color. I think we need a lot more color in our hobby. I really like this. I mentioned this before with the Nimble 6.5 series, a bunch of iMac colors. I'm aging myself when I talk about iMacs. But those are the new quads that are on the horizon. Both of these. And kind of cool that this one does come with Vanny style props, because he's one of the best FPV freestyle pilots I've ever seen. So aspire to be a better freestyle pilot, or just go out there and cruise. It depends on, if you get stuff for free, or if you have enough money to pay for all the broken stuff you're going to get. So this is the 04 Pro. We bought one of these with Patreon money. So I want to say thanks to Patreons on the channel for allowing us to get this and test it, to continue to test it for you guys. I just pulled this off of the Adam RC Beluga. That video is online today. You can check out some beautiful flight footage with this that we did yesterday. And that was a lot of fun. That plane is wired up with an Adam RC Deluxe Navi flight controller. GPS return to home, iNav, all the bells and whistles with that. There's nothing else like fixed wing FPV. It's one of my favorite things in our hobby. Freaking love it. One of the other channels out there that does fixed wing and loves it as much as I do, maybe even more, is Painless 360. He goes pretty deep into some of his builds and unboxings. Spends a lot of time doing fixed wing. If I could only choose one thing, I'd probably just choose fixed wing. I love it. If I had to choose. But yeah, this is nice. This is what it's going to be all about this year. I think this year it's going to be all about the 04 and the light. But we'll see how the light works out. There's some kinks out there. Maybe with some firmware updates from Geprc or from DJI, they'll work out some of those kinks. But I'm pretty happy with the direction that Geprc is heading, because I like to see this 04 version of the Vapor come out. It's kind of their new flagship FPV freestyle quad, probably replacing the Mark series. But yeah, it's a pretty nice looking quad. Look at that. That's sticky 3M sticky in the back. It will literally hold down super thick gauge wire. It's really tacky. I was saying, I had to rip my battery off of it. You don't need any Velcro on this quad. This battery will stick down. Um, like, and I've already been testing this out, but look at that. It's. I'll try to take it off. You can hear it like snap. Jesus. A little overkill on the sticky there, but it keeps the battery on. And would it help it from stay on there when you crash? Probably. I mean, probably not. The battery's still going to fly off and it's going to get ejected in a hard crash. One last thing I have to show you. This is kind of nice. They sent me a couple of these. They have some new transmitter straps. It's kind of nice. They have each of the quads on there: Mark 5, Cinelog 20, Cinebot 25. I love that Cinebot 25. We have the Moz 7 on there. It's got all the quads. Cinebot 25. But it's cool. It's kind of a blue material. Adjustable neck strap, extra thick, which is nice. It feels good around my neck. And then we have clamp. Now, I should do a video on these on the channel. I have some things, some specific things about neck straps that are some pros and cons that I should go over, and we could really do a full video on neck straps. Like, there's not a lot of information out there. Real world use case scenario type of videos for neck strap, because they are good and bad at the same time. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. But hopefully you enjoyed what's new from Geprc. Coming up on the channel, I'll have those reviews with the new Indie filters. Also, the brand new charger. They call it the Woo charger. They should have called it the Whoop charger. I don't think they wanted to get too close to the name of the Whoop store, but they could have called it the Whoop charger, because that's pretty much what it is, right? But that is what's new from Geprc for you guys. I hope you enjoy like kind of a full in-depth bench overview. If you know somebody that likes Gep, pass this video to them, because it's kind of a nice kind of deep dive into what's new right out of the first quarter of this year. Some pretty high quality bind and fly stuff. One of the top companies in my opinion. But you guys know we're Geprc lovers on this channel. If there's anything wrong with it or my pet peeves about it, like I mentioned in a lot of my reviews, some of my pet peeves, you'll find out what that is. Nothing is perfect for sure. But it's nice to have something that you could take out of the box and fly and not have issues with. And that's pretty much my takeaway for the last 11 years with Geprc stuff. It's pretty awesome. If you guys have any questions, we could do a quick Q&A. I do have to get out of here soon. So if you have any immediate questions about anything FPV drone related, drop it in the chat. I would love to actually do some we want to do a podcast coming up, and I'm looking for guests to be on the podcast. If you know anybody in the FPV industry that would like to do a podcast, just talk about what they do in relation to drones or FPV, whether it's professional or someone who just does it for the love of the hobby, I would love to have them on the channel and let them talk about their experience with drones and FPV. But you can send me an email if you're interested to be on that, if you are somebody that's in the industry or somebody that's well known on the FPV freestyle circuit or a racing circuit, get up with us. Let's do an interview. But this is the new gear from Gep, and we'll have some more reviews coming up on the channel. And I'll keep you updated on what's new and what's coming in. We've got some brand new stuff from iFlight coming in that's going to blow your mind as well. So stay tuned, guys. Happy FPV. And I will definitely see you guys on the next one. Take care and be safe out there, you guys. My God.